This is Just Listen, hosted by George. Today is November 30th, 2023. What I want to talk about today is the federal government policy on AI, and specifically this AI Bill of Rights, which is from the executive branch of government, and in part talks about directing agencies to combat algorithmic discrimination, which would also include facial recognition, while enforcing existing authorities to protect people's rights and safety. There are three areas I want to focus on. The first one is, as Congress continues its examination of the opportunities and risks presented by AI, we urge legislatures to consider the varied ways in which AI is already impacting our economy, society, particularly historically marginalized communities. This is yet another example of using the wording marginalized communities and applying it to artificial intelligence. They talked about algorithms and facial recognition. Algorithms are code that are run on the computer, and what they are asserting is that within the code, individuals are putting sequence sentences that discriminate against a group of people. With the facial recognition, they're saying that they are doing the same thing, and within writing a program for facial recognition, that they are writing software that discriminates against people of color. Bottom line. Now, if you look at what facial recognition is, which does face challenges, face detection recognition is the high variability of human faces in terms of shape, size, expression, illumination, makeup, etc. So there's always been issues since they first started using facial recognition. As a matter of fact, in the early 2000s, I was in the IT branch where we looked at facial recognition, we looked at CAT cards, we looked at scanning the eyeball, things of that nature. So when we looked at it back then, the facial recognition could apply to any human. That's why a lot of the more complex systems use the eye to recognize people. And it had absolutely nothing to do with how somebody looked, that somehow it knew, and so it would pick them out of a crowd. The second issue is the risks posed by AI are not theoretical. AI already affects people's access to economic opportunities and our civil liberties. Time and again, AI tools that promise efficiency turn out to be inaccurate, biased, denying people the right to build their futures. If you read the post and the article I posted, what they're talking about is that economic means people getting credit. For example, we've had credit in place for people to get credit scores for decades, and it's based on criteria of if you've ever been in bankruptcy, have you ever maxed out your credit card, have things been repossessed, etc. there is no criteria that asks for, well, what color are you? So based on that, there is no assumption that you would have an AI program that specifically says, oh, you're black. Well, there needs to be different criteria so that we can deny you credit. If you look at what's written here, what I just said, that's what they are asserting. And also in the article in my posting, that author is doing exactly the same thing. And the third one is AI used in high-stakes decisions by law enforcement, immigration, and national security agencies can trample people's civil rights and civil liberties. Americans have been arrested and incarcerated because police facial recognition systems made wrong match, and they say that the overwhelming majority of people who this affects are black Americans. So I did a little bit of a search on this, and I'll post the article that I was looking at because it tells you specifically what they're talking about. So in 2020, when there were demonstrations/protests, people were breaking things, causing a whole lot of damage to people's property. So the only way that the police could identify them was by pictures, and then cross-referencing that to bring them to justice. That's what this is talking about. And in fact, most of the people who got arrested, that got identified, those were the people. And the assertion that they were overwhelmingly black Americans was because they were the ones who were destroying property, burning vehicles, and things like that. Also, when there was a big thing of people in Chicago, for example, breaking into stores and breaking stuff, they did the same thing. Now, AI can't help if one group is doing that. And also, there is no data in AI that I've read that talks about how the other groups are recognized and how many people were not identified correctly. These three things are exclusively talking about people of color, and the people writing them are not acting like scientists because of the article I posted coming from that computer scientist and the government. There is no data that says, hey, we looked at that group and this was their numbers, etc. So you cannot do data analysis without looking at all of the variables, and I would submit to you they're not looking at the variables. They've turned into sociologists, and they are saying that is based on someone's color, based on past, I don't even know what the past grievances would be in this case as it applies to AI. In general, what needs to happen for the government to have the AI Bill of Rights for discrimination is more accurate data. I keep seeing that we are only looking at one group, and within that group, we're not getting valid data. We are getting people who are putting social issues and social problems into artificial intelligence, and the data that they are presenting is not accurate. The other issue is the reason that the government is using facial recognition is so that they can identify terrorists or people shooting up malls, things like that. These are tools that they need to capture people who are doing pretty bad things. And if we take this executive order and this Bill of Rights to heart, we're going to have unsolved cases. And we are empowering criminals and terrorists to do whatever they want because they won't be worried about us having tools to identify them. We have to base policies, especially in AI, on neutral data presenting all of the facts. This is George. This is Just Listen. Have a good day. What do you think?